Tēnā koutou katoa, good evening. World leaders are again calling for restraint in the Middle East after what's believed to be an Israeli strike on Iran. It appears the pinpoint strike at Isfahan in central Iran was limited. A US official says a radar site that protects a nuclear facility there was destroyed and that the nuclear site wasn't the target. But Iran has been clear, no damage, no casualties, and blaming it on infiltrators, not directly pointing the finger at Israel. The US top diplomat says they're committed to de-escalating tensions that have been building for weeks. So with Israel not acknowledging it and Iran minimising it, US correspondent Logan Church looks at whether this round between the arch-enemies is over.
Defiance on the streets of Tehran, Iran's capital. Down with Israel, they cry. After Iran says it blew up Israeli drones last night near the city of Isfahan.
Ultimately, based on God's promise, Israel will definitely be destroyed.
Meanwhile, on the streets of Jerusalem, disappointment, Israel did not push further.
And it's a pity, we have so much strength, but we're afraid to use it.
I think more would have been even justified, considering they sent 300 rockets to kill so many people.
I would say that we have shifted or see the turning point of the shadow war into an open war, and this is kind of a different opera in our geopolitical panorama of the Middle East.
In the target area, military bases and nuclear facilities. It's not clear what damage, if any, has been done.
We do not have any comment on the reports at this time.
All in response to this, a mass strike on Israel over the weekend by Iran's own missiles and drones, which was in turn a response to the Israeli bombing of Iran's consulate in Damascus, Syria. The question now, what's next?
Nobody would dare to go into some regional war, nobody wants it.
America's top diplomat today ruling out US involvement in yesterday's attack.
The United States has not been involved in any offensive operations.
Countries such as the United States have been urging Israel to show restraint in order to avoid an all-out war, and perhaps it's a message that's being heard. Experts say Israel's strike yesterday could have been much wider in scale, and today Iranian and Israeli media have been downplaying the scope of the attack.
Israel confined itself to something which is very, very limited.
That seems to indicate that Iran is seeking to step down off the ledge, minimize the impact of the attack, and perhaps walk back down the escalation ladder from here.
The US House of Representatives is expected to vote in the coming days on a series of foreign aid bills, including about $44 billion in further military aid for Israel. The big question, though, will both sides now back down, or could this escalate further? Logan Church, One News, New York.
There are fresh warnings tonight to check your electric blanket, with a Christchurch company saying more than 10% are failing safety tests. It echoes advice from a coroner after the case of an elderly woman who died when her electric blanket overheated. Donna Marie Lever reports.
As temperatures start to plunge, we're turning up the heat. But how safe is it beneath your sheets?
We're actually just going over the whole blanket, just making sure that it's got a nice consistent temperature across all the coils.
This Christchurch company has been failing more than 10% of electric blankets undergoing safety checks.
I'm actually shocked, to be really honest with you. They are dangerous. They're electricity, you're laying on electricity.
Faults could trigger combustion, smoke and flames.
We get about 5 to 10 electric blanket fires each year, but each one of these is incredibly dangerous.
Megatest use thermal imaging to detect faults among other safety checks. This one sets off alarm bells.
The coil's actually moved up and it's come away from its normal system.
And under testing, a hotspot is revealed.
Potentially going to get hotter and hotter and hotter and could catch alight.
Electric blanket testing can cost between $25 and $40, but it could save your life. Earlier this month, a coroner found an elderly woman in the capital died alongside her dog after her electric blanket overheated. While he's made no recommendations, he has endorsed the advice of Fire and Emergency to check old electric blankets and to replace them every 5 years.
This case really highlights the dangers of faulty electric blankets. We're asking people to check their electric blankets before they use them this winter.
Experts agree a visual test at home is the best starting point, but if in doubt, throw it out. Donna Marie Lever, One News.
A construction worker in Auckland had to be lifted to safety after being trapped 6 metres underground. Emergency crews responded to the incident at a water care site in the suburb of Sandringham and used the crane equipment on site to rescue him. He had been trapped between a wall and a beam inside a concrete chamber. He was taken to hospital, but water care report he suffered only minor injuries. They'll conduct an investigation and WorkSafe has been notified. A runaway truck has caused havoc at the Octagon in Dunedin city centre this morning. It's believed the truck came rolling down Stewart Street just after 7 a.m. Bystanders say it went crashing through the historic wire gates before narrowly missing the Robbie Burns statue. The driver was taken to hospital with moderate injuries. Dunedin's mayor told One News that it's still unknown how the accident occurred. The council will start repairs once it's safe to do so. A government coalition partner says he's surprised to hear the Prime Minister calling his public comments into question. In the Philippines, Christopher Luxon said remarks from David Seymour and Shane Jones about the Waitangi Tribunal were ill-considered. He'd questioned whether the tribunal should be wound up for its own good. After the Prime Minister's response to that, David Seymour said leaders should raise their concerns directly. New Zealand First Shane Jones brushed off the remarks.
Oh, look, I've moved on from that issue. My focus is on the coalition agreement.
Is it a rebuking from the Prime Minister, though?
Oh, look, I say I'm here for a public meeting, and as you know, Matua Shane's the god of wind.
The Waitangi Tribunal summoned the Children's Minister, who's an ACT MP, over government plans for Oranga Tamariki. There'll be a court hearing about that on Monday. The future of a heritage-listed building in Wellington that's been empty for years could soon be decided. But exactly how the now derelict Gordon Wilson flats will be brought up to building standards and used is still up for debate. Laura Frickberg explains.
They may not look their best now, but the Gordon Wilson flats have historical significance. Designed in the 50s and named after a famous architect. For more than 10 years, though, they've been unoccupied, deemed too unsafe in an earthquake.
Having it as a neighbour is actually not too bad, but it is also a real shame just looking out there and seeing, well, there's a lot of potential and it's just sat empty for years.
But that could be about to change if the government green-lights a council decision to remove the building's heritage status, making it easier to alter or even demolish. In a recent letter to residents, the building's owner, Victoria University, welcomed the move, saying it's considering all options for the site, including student accommodation, something that could not be done with its heritage status.
This has been sitting empty and derelict the whole time I've lived in Wellington, and now it's free from the shackles of heritage listing, and it would be amazing for it to be affordable student accommodation.
But a group of Wellington architects have put forward their own proposals and say whatever happens, the building must not be demolished.
Treated with care and made part of something thoughtful in terms of its occupation and strengthened, it could be a significant contribution to the city.
We can't be complaining that there's a housing shortage, and we can't be saying we want to reduce our carbon emissions and ignoring the fact that we have a building that is so suitable for housing here, be it student housing or other housing.
The Minister is due to sign off on removing the flat's heritage status by the end of the month. The fate of this piece of architectural history looming large over Wellington. Laura Frickberg, One News.
Australia's move to crack down on vaping has moved up a gear, with health ministers from all states and territories backing new federal legislation banning the use of non-therapeutic vapes. Australians currently using vapes to quit smoking need a prescription. In a world first, new law would ban vapes without nicotine, a move supported by some health advocates here.
I think it's going to actually strengthen and enforce the prescription model while protecting our youth against vaping and uptake of vaping, as well as supporting those who want to use vaping to quit.
It's estimated 1 in 6 Australian high school students vape. The federal government's now pushing to pass the law but faces some political opposition. Budget advisors are expecting to see a surge in referrals after the school holiday break as parents struggle with additional financial pressures. There's childcare costs for those who have to work through, as well as the cost of entertaining their children. Helen Castles has more.
An enterprising way to entertain themselves.
We were bored and we're like, oh, we should probably bake something.
So they're $2 each and you can buy two for $3.50.
There's no doubt school holidays are expensive and keeping kids occupied can be a struggle.
We often see a lot of people coming in to the budget services around the country following the holiday period. And the reason for that is they've actually spent money which actually they hadn't saved or they didn't have.
A trip to the movies isn't cheap, starting at around $20 a ticket. Then snacks, 10-pin bowling, around $24. These far north kids have a massive backyard to roam and are putting kai on the table.
We've got a whole bag of tortoise.
I really like to go fishing off the rocks or off the wolf. You can get lots of different species. It's really fun.
While it's still warm enough to swim in Northland, temperatures are dropping and parents might have to fork out for warmer clothing. And in many cases that will mean a switch from summer school uniforms to winter uniforms next term.
Skids operate more than 160 school holiday programs around the country that start at $50 a day.
With the cost pressures families are facing around New Zealand at the moment, we have seen a decline in the attendance, particularly in the last 4 months. Children probably are partnering up with parents and going into the office, but it's really important in coming to programs that the children can connect and play rather than just on screens.
In Ahipara, church volunteers run this program at $5 a day.
We can go to to Ahusin and Kaitaia. We can go in there to the museum and the library. They're free.
So what we encourage families to do is to actually set a budget and to look, what do I need to be saving each week or each fortnight from what I'm being paid, so that when the holiday time comes along, I'm actually going to have the resources.
With rising costs, it certainly pays to be creative. Helen Castles, One News.
Organisers of the Bluff Oyster Festival are in a race against the clock to ensure this year's event can go ahead. A dangerous historic building needs to be pulled down in a matter of weeks to allow punters back to enjoy the southern delicacy. Our reporter in the south, Jared McCulloch, has more.
It's the final piece of the puzzle to bring the beloved Bluff Oyster Festival back to life.
We've been cranking over just about the guts of 5 years to try to get this off the ground and get it down, and one hiccup after another, and it's been a long, hard road.
The annual event last took place in 2021, first cancelled by COVID, and again because the club hotel adjacent to the festival's facilities was deemed unsafe. The Volunteer Trust has owned the property since 2014, with a view to expand the festival's footprint.
A few more tickets perhaps, and make it more comfortable for the punters that come, because you've got to sell X amount of tickets to make a profit.
It then became listed as Category 2 heritage before being slapped with a dangerous building notice by council. Last year, an independent commissioner helped determine the building's future. Heritage New Zealand didn't oppose the demolition of the club hotel and said that the condition of the building meant it couldn't be retained and reused. So, it's finally coming down.
It only does you to test you.
Congratulations for them for taking the battles and working towards bringing our community event alive again for visitors and locals to attend.
A major part of Southland's social calendar. More than 4,000 people attend the festival, bringing in $4 million to the local economy. Some of the old hotel will likely be salvaged for a new entrance. With just over a month until the festival's return, the clock's ticking to get the building down and see the return of shucking scenes like this.
We've got to make it happen. We'll make it happen.
So Bluff's big day can go ahead once again. Jared McCulloch, One News.
Whatieatinaday, after the break, the promise of instant money transfers and the ability to pay even when a natural disaster sees the internet go down. Next, more on the Reserve Bank's plan for a digital currency. Then celebrating the enduring appeal of vinyl.
The more I look,
the more things that I want to buy.
How a new generation of music collectors is helping record stores thrive.
Kino could turn $1 into 250,000. Play in store or at mylotto.co.nz.
You ready? It's made of eucalyptus leaves.
That's cool. Look, there's baby goats over there.
I was making a joke.